Hi everyone, this is Dr. Ravni Ratan. I'm your faculty at Conceptual Psych, and today we are going to study social influence together. It's about changing others' behavior. Starting with, let us consider two tales. So, picture this that it's 2015 and Sarah, who is a 19-year-old college student, is driving home from the campus. Her phone buzzes. It's her best friend with an urgent gossip, and Sarah thinks, I'm an excellent multitasker. I can handle a quick reply. She starts to type while driving, and suddenly a child's ball rolls into the street. Fortunately, Sarah sees it just in time and brakes hard. Shaken, she pulls over. This near miss makes her part of a statistic, which is 25% of all US traffic accidents involves distracting while getting another thing done, which is driving. But here's where our story gets interesting. Sarah becomes an advocate against texting while driving. She shares her story on social media and her post goes viral. Her university invites her to speak, and soon she's part of a campaign that actually changes behavior. This is social influence being used for good. The second is the Bernie Madoff saga. Now imagine you are at an exclusive Manhattan party in 2007. You overhear whispers about Bernie Madoff's investment fund, which gives you a 15% return when the bank pays the 2%. So the person next to you, who's a successful doctor, says that I had to beg Bernie to take my money. He's so exclusive, he only accepts clients through referrals. You start to feel the pull. Everyone's doing it. It must be good, right? So, this fear of missing out, popularly known as FOMO in these days, is exactly what Madoff exploited. He used the social influence techniques masterfully. Scarcity, he created that I'm not taking new investors. Then there was a social proof, which was word of mouth from the satisfied investors. And then there is authority because his reputation came with the position, right? As a result, a $65 billion Ponzi scheme came out, which later destroyed lives. This is social influence weaponized for evil. So these two stories, this show us that social influence is like fire. It can warm your home or burn it down. It's not inherently good or bad, it's just a tool. Now let us start with conformity. Now here, this is the first tool of social influence, which talks about the invisible puppet strings. So let me tell you about something that happened to my colleague. So this is actually based on real hidden camera experiments. She entered an elevator at a medical conference, and three people were already inside. All were facing the back wall instead of the doors. So my colleague thought that it was odd but stood normally. So at the end of the floor, two more people entered and also faced the back wall. By the third floor, my colleague found herself slowly turning around. By the fourth floor, she was completely facing the back wall with everyone else. And when asked later why she did it, she said, I don't know. I just felt like I should. So this is conformity in action. We naturally align ourselves with group behavior, often without a conscious thought. Now, what does research tell us about how much we really conform? So, the conformity denial experiment says that it was a study by Pronin and colleague. They gave students a scenario where the setup said that students read recommendations about campus issues and saw that a panel of peers had endorsed certain views. Then they voted on these issues themselves. All right. So the twist was after voting, the students rated how much the panel influenced them, how much the panel influenced another student whose vote they could see. So here, both the student and the other person agreed with the panel exactly the same amount, but students rated their own conformity 3.07 out of 10. They rated the other person's conformity 5.67 out of 10. So here, the actual introspection illusion story, which we started with, that Sarah chooses to wear ribbed jeans because they're comfortable and I like the style. She sees Emma wearing the same jeans and thinks she's just following the trend. So we know our internal reasoning. We can only see others' external behavior. So this blinds us to our own conformity. All right. Now, let's just look at a cultural twist. If you see an American student, I'm not conforming, I'm expressing myself, he or she comes from an individualistic culture. Whereas if you look at a Japanese student, of course, I'm harmonizing with the group because they come from a collectivistic culture, right? That was about conformity. Now, let us move to social pressure. There, we are going to look at Solomon Asch's line study. Now, it's 1951. You're a college student who signed up for a vision test to earn some extra money. You walk into a room with 7 other participants, though you don't know that they are all actors. Now, the experimenter shows everyone a card with one line on the left and 3 comparison lines on the right. Which the line matches, he asks. It's obvious line B is the match. The task seems insultingly simple. The first person says line A. He says, do you think that the other person is blind? The second person also starts to say line A. Then you would start to think, maybe I'm not seeing this right. The third person says line A. Now your palm starts sweating. By the time it's your turn, 6 people have confidently said line A. Your mind races. Am I going crazy? Am I the only one who sees B? So, this is the social pressure where the results were shocking. 76% of participants confirmed at least once. 37 of the responses were conformist. Only 25 never conformed. So, this was the reference line. This was A, B, and C. Now, talking about the breaking point experiment, Asch then introduced a twist. One accomplice breaks ranks and gives the correct answer. Suddenly, conformity drops by 75%. Just one ally gives us the courage to stand against the group. So, another study which was about the private versus the public test, when participants write answers privately instead of speaking aloud, conformity plummets. This reveals 2 types. One is public conformity going along outwardly while disagreeing inwardly. Second is private acceptance, actually changing your belief. Okay, so one is public conformity, where you're writing the answers privately instead of speaking aloud. Conformity would plummet. So this is going along outwardly while disagreeing inwardly. Outwardly, you are actually agreeing, while internally, you do not agree. Then there is private acceptance, actually changing your belief. Actually changing your belief. Okay, now, so this is what we have just discussed. Let's discuss how social norms even emerge. So, in Muzaffar Sharif's autokinetic adventure, imagine you're in a pitch black room. There is a tiny point of light which appears, and in the darkness, there are no reference points. The light seems to dance and move, though it is actually stationary. This is the autokinetic phenomenon. Okay, so day one, when alone, Ali sees it move 2 inches. Beth sees it move 6 inches. Carlos sees 4 inches. Day 2, when they're together in the dark room, Ali says that I see about 2 inches of movement. Beth, really? I see more like 6, and Carlos, I'd say 4. They discuss, they observe again, discuss more. Gradually, something fascinating happens. Ali says maybe 3 inches. Beth could be 4 or 5. Carlos, again, I'm seeing 4. They converge on about 4 inches. They're literally creating a shared reality. Day 3, they are alone again. Each person still reports about 4 inches. The group norm has been internalized. They are not pretending, they actually see what the group taught them to see. So, when reality is ambiguous, we create social reality together. This is how cultural norms, fashion trends, and even stock market bubbles form. Okay, now let's talk about the factors which affect conformity. First is cohesiveness. So, if I tell you through a story, Jake desperately wanted to join the Sigma Alpha, which is the most prestigious fraternity on campus. During the pledge week, the brothers told all pledges to wear their shirts inside out to class. Jake thought it was stupid, but every pledge did it without question. Meanwhile, his friend Tom was pledging a fraternity he felt lukewarm about. When they gave the same instruction, Tom said this is dumb and wore his shirt normally. What is the difference? It is cohesiveness. The more we want to belong, the more we conform. We want to belong, the more we conform.